What does it mean to think like a product manager? You've probably heard it in different ways. Product sense, product intuition, product judgment. You see it in job descriptions, interviews, feedback. Everyone throws it around, but no one really sits down and explains what it really looks like in practice. If this sounds like something you've been wondering about, stick around because that is exactly what we are going into today. If we haven't met, hi, my name is Miracle, but you can call me Productsis, and on this channel we share practical insights on how to think better about product, go from idea to product, and grow your product career with intention. Welcome, welcome. So, what does it actually mean to think like a product manager? When people hear that question or hear that phrase, they quickly go to things like frameworks, tools, concepts. And while those things are important and they do fit into the thinking process, I would say thinking like a product manager is first and foremost a way of life. Stay with me. You know how in school, in social studies, we learn that culture is a way of life. Basically, it's not something you just switch on, switch off. It's how you see the world. It shapes how you interpret things, how you respond to things, how you move in your day to day. Thinking like a product manager is something like that. For me personally, and this is a personal opinion, thinking like a product manager is not something you do only at work and leave at the door when you go home. It is how you see things. It is how you notice problems, how you ask questions, how you think about people. It's a lens you carry everywhere you go. And that's exactly what we're going to be diving into today. So I'm going to be talking about 3 layers for today in no particular order. So the first one is how you see problems. You see, most people, when they encounter a problem or are given one, take it at face value. Their first instinct is to jump into solution mode without even trying to understand what it is they are solving for. A product manager does not do that. We pause, we probe, we ask questions. Think of it like being a doctor. When a patient walks in and says to you, I think I have this problem, or I think I have this condition, please prescribe this medication to me. A good doctor does not just hand over the prescription. They examine the patient, they ask questions, they dig deeper. Because if you think about it, sometimes what the patient thinks is wrong and what is actually wrong might not be the same thing. It is the same in product management. The solution someone is asking for and the problems they actually have are not always the same thing. In product management, we call it problem first thinking, and I'll do a different video to dive in on like the double diamond where we talk about problem first and solution first. But first of all, let's talk about problem first thinking. Here, before you engage in any solution, you seek to understand the problem underneath the request. This is to ensure that you're taking the right step in the right direction. So before you engage in any solution, you want to ask yourself these 4 questions. What problem are we actually solving? Who has this problem? How do we know this is the real problem? And what happens when we do not solve it? These questions are actually very helpful to have at the back of your mind when navigating situations like this. Let me give you a quick example. Let's say you're a product manager in a fintech company. You and your team, you own the onboarding flow. One day, you notice that users are not actually completing the sign-up flow. Now, the first instinct for most people is to say the form is probably too long. And look, I am not against assumptions. Assumptions are a good starting point, but where it becomes a problem is when you treat that assumption as fact and immediately act on it without digging deeper. A product manager wants to go further. Yes, a lengthy sign-up is a common reason for drop-off. But is that actually what is happening here? Is that the real reason our users are not completing the form? So in that situation, you reach out to your users, you talk to them, and what you find out is that the issue is not the form being too long. At a specific point in the flow, the exact point where you're seeing the drop-off, users feel nervous. Basically, they feel unsure about entering certain details at that particular point because of safety concerns. They do not trust the product yet. So you realize in that moment that the fix is not necessarily a shorter form as people will most likely or probably suggest, but introducing trust signals. Trust signals could look like a clear explanation of how their data will be used, something that reassures them that what you're asking from them will be handled the right way. Nobody would have thought about that by jumping straight into a solution. That is what pausing to understand the problem actually unlocks. The second layer is how you understand your users, how you understand people. Every problem exists because of human behavior. People have a job they need to get done, a frustration they are trying to escape, a goal they are trying to reach. And a product manager's job at its core is to understand that deeply enough to build something that actually helps. Now, a trap a lot of product managers fall into is that they get so obsessed with the high level persona. Let's say our user is a first time investor that wants to grow their savings. Okay, fine, good. But what does that actually mean at 2 a.m. when they are staring at their portfolio and the market has just dropped? What are they feeling? What are they afraid of? What would actually help them in that specific moment? Now, personas are great. They're an important central source of truth when it comes to understanding your target audience, be it primary or secondary, and so on. But you also need to cultivate the habit of seeing things through the lens of the people you are solving the problem for. Seeing it through their context, seeing it through their day-to-day. In product management, we call this use cases. Now, use cases are detailed scenarios that describe how a user would interact with your product to achieve a specific goal. And one thing I love about thinking in use cases is that it forces you to live through the problem through their lens. It is one thing to understand the problem, is another thing to actually feel what it is like to be the one experiencing it. That shift in perspective changes a whole lot. Let me give you a practical example. You know how I love my examples. A friend of mine manages a website for a community we both belong to. In this community, we have subgroups where people meet regularly, ideally close to where they live. So our leader requested a page on the website where members could come on the website, see the available subgroups, and choose the one closest to them. Now, my friend went ahead to build the page. A clean list of different subgroups: North London, East London, Southeast London, and so on. Simple, organized, and on the surface, you look at it and say, yeah, this actually works. But when I looked at it, I did what I always do. I put myself in the shoes of the person that would actually land on that page. Let's say her name is Lucy. Lucy just moved into the city. She has been following the community from another country and she's excited to join physically. But now Lucy is still finding her feet, still getting used to the geography. Lucy is still trying to figure out which areas are close to her, which areas are far. Now she lands on the page, she sees the list of the subgroups. North London, East London, West, South, East, Southwest. And then Lucy is thinking, okay, which one is close to me? And she's not sure. And honestly, in that moment of confusion, a lot of people would most likely close the tab and maybe never come back to it or just come at a later date. So basically, while a page existed with the available option, there was still some sort of like a friction, a barrier between Lucy seeing the groups that were listed and her actually joining a group close to her. Now, my friend did a good job with what was requested. Seeing the person behind the brief helped improve the solution. So instead of just having a list of these subgroups on the page, I suggested a search functionality. Something where you type your postcode, at least that's one information you have, one data you have, right? Something where you type a postcode and then it goes through the list of the available subgroups based on the address and everything and shows you the subgroup closest to you. Sort of like when you search for hair salons near you on Google, and it gives you options ordered by distance. Based on that, you can make an informed decision without the hassle. That is what seeing through your user's eyes and their context actually look like in practice when solving problems. And the way you build this habit is by constantly, consistently asking this question: what is it like to be this person right now? Not in general, but in this specific moment, maybe at this particular point in the product, at this particular point in their journey while interacting with your product. What are they feeling? What do they need? What are they expecting? What will make things easier for them? The next layer, the third layer, is how you make decisions. If there's anything product management has taught me, is that every decision you make has a cost. And how you make those decisions matters. Now, I'm going to share a couple of thoughts under this layer. The first thing I want to talk about is thinking in trade-offs. The truth is, there's no perfect decision. Anytime you say yes to something, you automatically say no to something else. And being conscious of that is very important, especially when there are critical risks involved. In practice, there will be times where you have to choose speed over quality, growth over retention, one user segment over the other. And your ability as a product manager to clearly articulate those trade-offs is critical. Because one thing I've learned is it's not enough to make decisions. Naming those decisions, saying it out loud, even if it's informally, just so everyone is on the same table. Basically informing them that if we choose to build this quickly, it means we're accepting some level of technical depth here. So I'm just giving like an example. Or if we focus on acquisition this quarter, it means based on our capacity, resources available, existing users might not get as much attention. When you name it clearly, it becomes a real decision. It creates clarity for everyone involved. Also ensure that you document it, because that way you're able to revisit it when circumstances change. The second thing under this layer is systems thinking. I know it might sound similar to thinking in trade-offs, but they are actually complementary. They work together, but they ask different questions. Thinking in trade-offs asks, if I choose this, what am I giving up? Systems thinking asks, if I do this, what else moves? You need to understand that your product is not just a collection of features. It is a system. Every decision you make, every feature you ship, every change you implement has a ripple effect on existing features, on other teams, on the business, on the overall user experience, not just the parts you touched. This is especially real when you are working in organizations that have different teams, different squads. A decision your squad makes in one area can impact another team's work in ways you did not anticipate. And if you're not thinking about the whole system, you might solve one problem and unknowingly create another one somewhere else. Let me give you a quick example under this point. Let's say your team wants to simplify a form in the onboarding flow to reduce drop-off. That is a trade-off decision now. You are weighing the cost of engineering time against the value of reducing friction for users. But system thinking takes it a step further. You ask this question: if we simplify this form and remove certain fields, how does that affect the data we collect downstream? Does it impact the personalization engine that relies on that data? Does it create more support tickets because users are now missing the context they need later? Does it affect another team that depends on that information? Same decision. However, in that situation, trade-off thinking helps you to decide whether to do it. System thinking helps you understand the full impact of doing it. The third thing under this layer is your relationship with data. How you use it, how data fluent you are, and how you use it to make informed decisions. As a product manager, it is not enough to just go with your guts. Once in a while, we definitely do that. But more often than not, your decision needs to be backed by something real. And that something can look different depending on the situation. Sometimes it's qualitative. What are users telling you? What patterns show up in their feedback? What are you observing? Sometimes it's quantitative, actual numbers, drop-off rates, metrics, behavioral data. Whatever form it takes, having evidence behind your decision matters a lot. It helps you build trust with your team. It fuels your conviction and keeps you grounded. And in all this decision making, ultimately you will still make the call, but at least the call is informed by real insight and not just assumptions. And then the last point I want to talk about under this layer is experimentation mindset. Because there will be times, and this happens a lot, where you will not have full information to make an informed decision. Maybe you're in a new space, no historical data, no previous experiment to learn from. In those moments, an experimentation mindset is what carries you through. What that looks like in practice is this: you identify a potential direction you want to take. You think through the trade-offs and risk of each of the options you have. You align on which risk you're willing to take and how to mitigate the ones that are critical. Then you make a move, you monitor it closely, you learn from what happens, and you adjust. Because at the end of the day, part of the job is navigating uncertainty. The goal is not to wait till you have all the answers. The goal is to make a considered move and let what you learn shape what comes next. So bringing it all together, thinking like a product manager starts with how you see problems, not just what is being asked, but what is going on underneath those requests. It goes deeper into how you understand the people you're building for, not just who they are, but what they are experiencing. And it shows up most clearly in how you make decisions consciously with the whole picture in mind. That is the lens, and the more you use it, the sharper it gets. I would love to hear from you as usual. Which of these points resonates with you? Do you have any follow-up questions? Do you have anything to add? For my practicing PMs, is there something you'd love to add to this? Let me know in the comment section. Again, don't forget, if you're not subscribed yet, don't forget to click the subscribe button. Don't forget to give the video a thumbs up and click the notification bell so that you will be the first to know when a new video drops. And yes, don't forget to share this video as well. Thank you. I'll see you in the next one.